Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. I'm your Kennywood Fanatic, and I hope you all are having a wonderful day and a wonderful week. I know I sure am. This year I got out to 5 different parks and I rode 26 new roller coasters. In those 5 parks, I visited 2 new parks for me in Kings Island and Ken Nobles, and I revisited 2 parks that I have not been to in years, such as Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, and Idlewild. And I have made the obvious Kennywood visits since last year, so my top 10 has been shaken up a lot. Without further ado, let's get into my 2024 top 10 roller coasters. Coming in at number 10 is Alpinist at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg. I've been to Busch Gardens before, however, that was whenever I was still young and afraid of coasters. So when I went back for my school's band trip last year, I just knew I had to get on this behemoth. It definitely did not disappoint me. Both of my rides were in the back row, and yeah, it was raining for those rides, so my face was hurting a little bit. And yes, this ride was very forceful and snappy. Highlights of the ride for me were the Cobra Roll and the Zero G Roll. Yes, the trims do hit hard, and there is slight headbanging in the back row. However, this is definitely my favorite B&M invert, and a solid number 10 overall. Number 9 is my first ever B&M Hyper in Diamondback. Diamondback is one of those rides that you always hear is good, but you don't really give it a second thought until after you ride it. I was excited to ride it at first and all, but after I got off the ride, I was like, dang, that was good. I fell in love with this thing right away. The floater in the front row was super strong, and it was pretty smooth up front, surprisingly, from what I've heard. The back row has better airtime, in my opinion. However, a downfall to the back row is that it is super jackhammery in the valleys, and it just has a rattle throughout the entire ride, and it's super uncomfortable, and it's maybe even a little bit rough. Overall, this is a top tier coaster, and I highly recommend it. I do highly recommend doing the back row, just for the experience. I did think it had better airtime, and the ejector back there was ejector, it wasn't just floater. It was borderline ejector. So, I definitely recommend giving it a try, but after one ride, I was ready to be done in the back row, so later in the day, we went back for more rides in the front. Number 8 is yet another new credit for me. It's Pantheon at Busch Gardens. This coaster is a reason why I love Intamin so much. The ride is so smooth and forceful. I rode this thing 16 times in a row without getting off the train or just running back in line in general. And the park was dead the day we went as it was pouring down rain, but the rides were all running great. My favorite elements on this ride were the first inversion, as the hang time is very unexpected, and the bunny hill in the middle of the swing launch, which provides some of the best ejector on any coaster. I have a hot take regarding this coaster. I believe that if the theming on Pantheon were better, which is like the low light of this ride is the theming, the park did drop the ball here. If the theming on Pantheon were better, I believe that I would enjoy it more than I enjoyed Velocicoaster. So that just goes to show how strong of a layout Intamin can do, and how they don't even really need theming to make an amazing coaster. Number 7 is Millennium Force. This ride did drop down 3 spots from last year, mostly because I rode more insane rides. But that does just go to show how strong of a ride this is, if it can keep its spot in my top 10. Millennium Force was my first ever Giga coaster, and it gives it an insane night ride. I don't understand how people could think that this ride is very forceless, as it provides nice positive forces on the turns whilst having fun floater and ejector. My favorite elements on this ride are the speed hill, the drop, and the first overbank. This ride has a great station music, and I believe it is worth almost any wait time it gets. Definitely go ride it soon. Number 6 is another coaster hailing from Kings Island. It's Mystic Timbers. Now, at first, yeah, I was a Mystic hater, and I still don't like the lap bar, as I feel that it limits airtime, and I think that Thunderhead still has the same problem. But after I held the darn bar up off my lap for the entire ride, I understood why it's a great coaster. I prefer the return leg, but my favorite moments were the last few airtime hills. This ride did theming so well, and I have a little piece of advice for you when going into this coaster. Lower your expectations. Don't be thinking about how so many people, such as coaster studios, are telling you it's elite, and formulate your own thoughts and opinions on it, as you might think it's hot garbage at first and be like, yeah, I don't know why so many people like it, but let it warm up throughout the day and give it a chance, and please hold the lap bar off your lap, because that lap bar sucks. GCI needs to learn how to make lap bars, which I hope with their new trains they figured out their lap bar issue. Yes, I'm a GCI lap bar hater in case you couldn't tell. Number 5 is again another Intamin from Cedar Point. It's Maverick. Maverick only dropped 2 spots from last year, and it is still an insane ride, and still my favorite coaster at the park. For the other rides, I told you my favorite elements on the ride, but I legit don't think I can pick just a few as my favorite elements on this. Every single moment hits different, even the brake run hits. That thing shakes as the second train leaves the launch tunnel. I love the ejector on this ride, and the snappiness of the elements catches me off guard every time. I will always love this ride, and I totally recommend you go ride it. This was Intamin's first Blitz coaster, and Intamin definitely smashed it out of the park, and you can see how they still carried on Maverick's legacy with rides such as Pantheon with its snappiness, and same with Velocicoaster. So I'm glad to see Intamin is carrying on the Intamin Blitz coaster, as it is my favorite ride type ever. Number 4, it's a Giga Coaster, not a Hypercoaster, because if Orion is a Hypercoaster, then Phantom is not a Hypercoaster. Orion is my favorite coaster at Kings Island, and it's such a comfortable ride. There is not a dull moment on this thing, and the drop is insane in all rows. The wave turn is also underrated, with some people saying it sucks and it's not profiled correctly. However, I disagree. I think I got some good airtime on it, and I think it does exactly what it was designed for. Yes, this ride is short-ish, but all the airtime is great, and so is Orion's belt. If I love this thing as much as I do, I wonder what I'll think about Fury 325. Orion offers some really nice floater. I wish there was a little bit more floater, but that drop offers great ejector, and these last two hills you're watching now have some pretty good airtime on them too. The two camelbacks in the speed, well, I'm counting the speed hill as a camelback, but the camelback and the speed hill, they both also offer pretty good floater airtime. I love this thing to death, and I'm excited to see how the park maintains it in the years to come. Number 3 is my number 2 from last year. It's Velocicoaster. Velocicoaster was my first experience with an Intamin Blitz coaster, and it's crazy to think that it's been in my top 3 for 4 years now. I love the first half with the theming, and the second half's elements hit very hard, especially the Mosasaurus roll. That is hands down my favorite inversion on any roller coaster ever. I was also super excited for this thing to open, as Jurassic Park is my favorite movie, and I was so excited to hear about an insane new Jurassic coaster coming to a deserving park. I'm excited to ride it again next year because we're going back to Disney for my senior band trip for performing arts next year. So I'm excited to get back on this thing, and I'm excited to experience other stuff in the park. So stay tuned for a video coming on that and sometime in 2026. Number 2 and number 1 were very hard for me to decide, but coming in at number 2, we have the best hypercoaster in the land, in my opinion. It's Phantom's Revenge. Phantom's Revenge was my first hypercoaster, and one of the main 4 coasters I credit for getting me into being an enthusiast. The other ones are Loch Ness Monster, Thunderbolt, and Velocicoaster. There is something about the ride and the atmosphere of the park that it's in. It makes this ride feel very special. Definitely including at night rides too. My last Phantom night ride was in the front row, and we pulled negative 1.2 Gs. It was insane. The finale is definitely my favorite part of the ride, and yes, the ride is short in terms of length, but when I get off, I feel very satisfied with the ride's length. I don't think that I would even want more on this ride, as it's perfect the way it is. I highly recommend getting to Kennywood next year just to ride this. Also, with Steel Curtain opening next year, make Kennywood a destination on your bucket list for next season. Last year, Lightning Rod was an honorable mention, but I believe that it should get the credit it deserves. I love this ride inside and out. Starting with the theme, I'm a huge car guy, whether it be supercars, muscle cars, hot rods, you name it, I probably like it, except for electric vehicles, specifically Teslas. Teslas suck. Lightning Rod is themed to hot rods, and the theme is executed flawlessly. Keep in mind, when I'm talking about the ride, I'm talking about the 2023 version. So the very last year that you could experience it with the launch. The launch was super forceful, and I thought it was great, but sadly it was removed. The ride has the best airtime I've ever experienced, specifically at the quad down. And the quad down perhaps has the best ejector ever. It's either that or Phantom's Finale. It is also more of a 6-tuple down. This ride is absolutely perfect to the last drop, and after riding Steel Vengeance, I thought RMC was overrated. However, Lightning Rod is a wonderful, amazing ride, and even with the launch lift being replaced, I still believe that it will be an insane ride with the lift hill. So I recommend getting out to Dollywood just to experience it. you all so much for watching this. I really appreciate your viewership, and I sincerely apologize for the long delay in the video. I hope you all learned something along the way from these videos. Shout out to Blizzard Coasters, Fury Coasters, Airtime Thrills, El Toro Orion, and Coaster Thrills for letting me borrow content for this video. Also, stay tuned for next year as I plan to start bringing vlogs and other things of that sort to the channel. In the meantime, please exit safely to your right and have a great day here at Kennywood Park.